So welcome everybody to our, what is it, our fourth Blender Westside Meetup. We've got some pretty good folks lined up today to talk. So my job is just to kick us off and then get out of the way for the special topics. We have updates from David, who's online through Zoom.
Hey.
You can see that. We've got a Blender VFX demo from Sam. We've got a Mocha Blend Addon update from Chris. And then JT is going to show off a new Blender app that he launched. And then it just kind of descends into like overall general forum and socializing and that kind of thing. Before we continue, is there anyone else that wants to add to this agenda? We'll take open topics. Anyone? Okay.
I was at the Amsterdam meeting.
Oh yeah, you were at the Blender conference.
Yeah.
Oh nice. Yeah, well we've got, at the end of this, we've got kind of room for event reports. So we'd love to hear about it. Yes, Sam.
If it's possible, I would like to request space at the end to maybe talk about job opportunities.
Oh sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so David, can you see us okay?
Yeah, I definitely can.
All right, great. Anyone here new to Blender? Okay. Fairly new? Okay.
Experimenting for a year.
Oh, that's okay. You're familiar with it then.
Yeah, it took me about 11 months to get to the point where I could start working with people.
Okay.
It's really only a month, if you think about it.
Okay, all right. But main thing is at our bigger meetings, there's usually one or two people that come in that have literally never seen Blender before. So we put a slide in here for that, but it sounds like we're all familiar. I'm going to move on. I mean, the one thing I will say is that Blender is this fantastic community, and that's really what I think draws a lot of us to it. So this is the part of the agenda where our timing just goes off the rails. If you could, in 60 seconds or less, and I want to stress that, 60 seconds or less, and you have to self-time yourself, just give a quick introduction of who you are, what your interest in Blender is. And I'll start over here.
Software developer. I like sci-fi. I'm an amateur Blender 3D person, and I want to get into movies eventually.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Awesome. Way to keep it under 60. Go.
Darren Jones, I work at Fox TV, but I've basically done editing and video shooting, just production work, and I'm working on a cartoon look of animation.
Awesome. Awesome. Welcome. Sam?
I work for a company called Macro. I'm project manager and lead production artist. So we use Blender most of the time to develop our content. And previously I was working with Blender as well, creating visual effects for some movies. So,
Nice. Nice.
My name is Oli Lycan. I'm a CG artist. I'm a CG artist at Macro as well. I do games on my own time and stuff like that, and I study animation.
Awesome. Awesome. I didn't know you guys worked together. That's great. Good way to keep it 60 seconds. Go.
Bruce, Steve, a developer, 3D developer,
Awesome.
All right, Chris Barrett, I used to do special effects in the film industry and got out of it to raise kids. And I wrote software and I started trying to use Python tools to integrate Blender into what studios would want so they could use Blender along with their existing workflows.
Nice. Nice. In the back.
I'm Gary Klein. I'm a previous artist, and I use Blender a little bit, and I do mostly storyboard stuff. And I'm actually working for the Fox, or the producer of Bumps. And he's got a
Excellent.
John Reisman, and started out in audio engineering, video production a long time ago. Took a vacation similar to his around 1998, and then I got involved in science and communications. So actually, it turns out that when I was looking at the animation programs, I looked at all the different ones in Vila and whatever, and Blender being open source and whatnot. But did get into Vila. Came back to Blender because I couldn't do certain things because I needed to visualize, science and bring molecules together and do all kinds of things. So I did that.
Awesome.
I'm Steve.
Yep.
I'm just an novice at Blender and kind of addicted to it. I enjoy playing with it.
As we all are, I'm sure. Yep.
I'm John Delano. I use Blender primarily for 3D graphics now, but I started using it just to enhance graphic design and marketing stuff. I was working on I'm trying to get out of it and get more into character animation.
Excellent. JT?
JT Nelson, I help organize these meetings with Stirling. Most of you guys know me. I do graphics and video for live events. And I use Blender a little bit, and more so in that, and I also do development work with the source code. I'm currently working with the leads in the physics engine. We're making some major changes for the 2.7 series to be able to add modifiers to Blender. So we're working directly with Scorpion and we're doing fraction on that. So I have some kick-ass fraction tools.
Awesome. And my name's Stirling Getz. I'm a amateur CGI artist, and animator. I'm totally addicted to Blender. And yeah, excellent. All right. And David, you want to introduce yourself? 60 seconds or less.
Can we get this video up on the screen?
Can you not see his video?
Up. Can you hear me or see it? Either way.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. 60 seconds. So my name's David. I run an animation studio called Theory Animation, and we use Blender exclusively. One of my compatriots is in here too, Shane. And I'm going to be showing off some stuff from our new episode that premieres in 2 weeks.
Fantastic. And we've got a couple of people online. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Shane Davis. Like David said, I work at Theory Animation as a production manager, as well as doing some animation shots and things like that. Day job, I work at IBM in the visual department, making 3D animation.
Stop there. Don't touch anything.
This is really strange.
Nice to meet you, Shane.
Great to meet you. Yes. And somebody else who just dropped off, apparently.
Yeah, we got a couple of people in here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Rachel, she's
She's a did it. Okay. I see what's going on. Okay.
Rachel's in chat with me right now. She's actually in the little chat box. She can't hear.
Anyone else want to introduce online?
Hey, I'm Lee Gramling. I'm a TD at Disney and longtime Blender user, and I teach animation at CalArts.
Excellent. Good to meet you. Okay. Anyone else?
I think we're good.
All right. Okay. Well, in that case, so normally what I do at these meetings is I give a little bit of kind of what's new in Blender. It's been a while. Our last session was October. So we've had a whole Blender 2.69 release, which was kind of a minor-ish release in Blender terms. We got some good stuff with importing tools, cycle, subsurface scattering, and hair shading, motion tracking, sky models, mesh modeling like division, like mesh division, that kind of thing. And actually, we've got some of the, you'll see down here some of the new features that we're going in. So this is SSS, the new sky model, plane tracking, mesh subtraction. There's been a lot of news as well. Recently announced a Blender Cloud initiative from the Blender Institute to try to create more collaborative working for small studios, which is great. And it actually, I don't want to overstate it because it's there's really just a proposal up, so we don't know what it's going to turn into. But it certainly sounds like the next generation of how they're going to share Blender Institute created assets. Anyways, Project Gooseberry, there's been some new information out on that. That's the new feature-length movie that the Blender Institute's working on using a distributed set of studios. Anyone in here directly involved in Gooseberry? No? There's been a major uplift on the Blender developer platform. So they went from, what was it, like CVS to Git or something? Yeah. Yeah, so in addition, revamp of the Blender website and a new group that pulled together of professionals to establish blendersupport.com. So a lot of real regulars in the Blender community, actually people that know what they're doing. Huge number of new tutorials, books, competitions. Of course, there's like a Christmas competition that happens every year. there's a new Art of Blender book, which kind of showcases some of the new Blender art that people are doing. You guys want to pass around? Let's flip through it. Let's see. Gosh, what else can I add? Lots of new add-ons, scripts. Arnold just released in the past few days. You guys see that? I don't think there's any exporter from Blender yet, but that's kind of exciting. Good. That's not good. If there's a head start, then we might see something soon. I mean, it looks pretty cheap, and you know.
I think also Marcus Fajardo, who is the creator of the Arnold engine,
Mm-hmm.
he was also in the last meeting at Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
So he showed up himself and tried to show his interest. Also, he's been around Blender Artist forums about this cycle thread and all these things. He can provide information about how to make cycles kind of like more in the way that Arnold is working. So I think Marcos is very interested in integrating Arnold at some point in the future.
Yeah, that's great. I know him and Brecht are in contact. Brecht being the developer of Cycles, render engine in Blender. And new versions of GIMP, some of the open movies have been released in kind of 4K. Blender had a 20th birthday. And then I always put this link up here for if you're interested in getting a job in CGI or VFX. SIGGRAPH always has a job board going at any given time. Yeah, and what's coming in 2.70? So everybody's very excited about volumetrics. There's a limited volumetrics release. So the picture you see on the lower side of this diagram, or sorry, lower side of the slide is volumetrics. The first picture is absorption, so good for things like colored glass. The second one is dispersion. No, scattering, sorry. And that's actually a combination of scattering and absorption. And then the third one is emission. So some slick, if you download the latest build.builds, builds, you'll get volumetrics. It's currently kind of slow and it's CPU only, but very exciting stuff. And then during the last meeting, we talked a lot about this kind of UI madness that the head of Blender Guru started, and then it was talk at the Blender conference, and now we're finally seeing it in the build. So we have new UI in Blender. If you download the latest builds, you get a tabbed interface on the left. Great for new starters. I think it's gonna make a huge difference in uptake. If you read everybody's Blender story for the Blender birthday, there was a blog, and it always starts, I downloaded it, I fired it up, I gave up after an hour, and then I came back like a couple of years later. So hopefully this will solve that first problem. So some other stuff, there's multi-threaded improvements in the display and viewport. So there's a big project underway to basically improve the performance to get up to, you know, some of the commercial contenders out there. And if you're a gamer, I guess level of detail is a big deal. And there's a first-person shooter style viewport navigation. So it's like kind of like the fly mode that's in there today. Any other announcements from you guys on books, classes, projects? Yeah.
The only thing I noticed, the NVIDIA card, I couldn't get a lot of the stuff to work on an NVIDIA card. I had to use NVIDIA. The right motherboard combination of motherboard matters a lot.
It does, yeah. So Blender's always been very CUDA friendly, but not very OpenCL friendly, which is what AMD is throwing their weight behind. As it turns out, the last Blender release actually includes OpenCL, and it's kind of sneakily stuck in there. You have to set an environment variable to get it to work. And they're currently testing it on various AMD cards, and there's a Blender artist thread that people are reporting back any issues. So it's not 100% supported, but it's the first time they've been able to compile a kernel for OpenCL for those cards and then work it successfully. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff, because obviously there's just a huge number of people with powerful AMD cards that can't use them today. So anything else? Any other announcements? No? Okay, well, so if you're not familiar with already, everybody's probably been to blender.org, Blender Nation. Hopefully you've figured it out. That's like great new site. BuildBot, this is where you get your pre-release Blender builds. So if you're interested in what's in blender.next, that's where you go. Blender Artists is kind of these guys. It's where everybody, sort of all the Blender heads hang out. And then I threw CGCookie in there in case you're a beginner and you haven't found this site yet. I think it's, I don't know, $10 a month or something. You get access to all of their stuff. There's a lot of really good free tutorials out there. Okay, and with that, David, I think we're on your topic, so I'm going to hand things over to you.
Okay, I'll just chat for a bit, and I imagine you have the video. Yeah.
I do. Oh yeah. Do you want me to play that video or
I'll
wait?
do a little intro, and then yeah.
Okay.
I'll go for it.
Okay.
So hi everybody, I'm David, and I run this studio called Theory Animation, and we're a Blender house. We use Blender quite a bit. And we do use Premiere for editing, so don't kill me for that. We also develop software and tools to work remotely. That's actually, I'm in Florida right now. I used to live in Los Angeles and go to these pretty frequently, but started realizing that when I was working at Rhythm and Hues that artists live all over and we work all over. My team was actually based partly out of Taiwan and partly out of India, and I was managing these artists. So it kind of inspired me and then my fellow co-founders to think like there's a different way of doing this, that there's this remote idea. We could actually really pull this off. We all know what happened to Rhythm and Hues, had a huge kerfuffle and exploded, laid off 600 people over the Oscar weekend. And that was the impetus to start this company, Theory Animation. Now, what I do, we write, like I said, we write software to work remotely. We do support Maya. We're not only in Maya in the tool side of things. The software works for data management. So that way, if you have multiple people working across different time zones or whatever, it's kind of like a Dropbox system for you. And the software also works for version control and shot management. So that way, if you have, if you want to see what the latest status of the project is, or what shots have been sent out, or what anybody's working on. So like I said, started the studio after Rhythm and Hues went kerfuffle, work remotely. So if you're interested in working remotely with other artists, other teams, other producers, or you may know somebody, just send me an email. It's david@theoryanimatio.com. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing this month. We're releasing a show called Rain Clovis. Now, some of you follow us and you know all about it. It's a cartoon about a cat and an iguana and their misadventures in life. At the end of this month, we're going to release the final part of our 4-part series, Rain Clovis, plus a few little things that we've included to kind of transition the whole thing. We're going to release it as one full 8-minute piece. So it's going to be really fun. Sterling, you should have the file, and I'm going to show you guys like a little teaser of what it'll be. Now, it's not rendered completely, so don't kill me. And we've also done some visual effects work. I guess it makes sense, right? Having worked in visual effects, we have a couple of fire shots. They're really basic, but kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing. So Sterling, he's going to play for you guys a 8-minute piece. And I'd like to know what you guys all think. So with that, Sterling, just go for it, man.
Okay. Nice. Nice one, Dave.
Cool. So you guys liked it?
We did indeed.
Awesome. As you can see, it's not completely rendered, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Love the pyrotechnics, VFX. Good job.
Yeah, we actually are. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. I'm just playing with like overlay and a little color dodging to really make it stand out a little bit more. There's one more shot that has fires when he throws the book into it. And that's going to be really fun because we got to light the book on fire and everything. So that's what we're working on right now, actually. And you can tell there's like musical stops because we just haven't gotten to the music yet. But all of that's going to get tied together, and we're releasing it on January 30th. So that's about 2 weeks from now, a little less than 2 weeks. But yeah, that's who we are. We're Theory Animation, and thanks a lot. Thanks for showing it off for me.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody have any questions for Dave while we got him? So I'm told you use cycles, right? Or at least from your last video, it looks like you guys use cycles for the final.
Yeah, we ended up going with cycles over freestyle, mostly to take advantage of the GPU, and also just because most of our artists are really comfortable in working in cycles, shading wise, and we just stuck with it. After a while, we did replicate the look just using internal, but just to keep everything the same for this one episode, we decided to stick with cycles. And we do use outlines. Some of the shots don't have them in right now, but we do have black outlines, and we use freestyle for that.
So we have a question here.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Did you catch that?
I didn't, and I heard a little bit of it.
I just want to know what your render pipeline is like.
So we wrote some software called Theory Render. That's a little bit like a net render. What it does is it takes everybody's machine that's idle, or when you're not using it, for example, and turns it into a small render farm. It connects to our cloud, if you will, and a master repository sends files in whatever textures and everything that you need to that machine, so that machine can render. So for example, right, we have I think 6 or 7 machines on the farm right now, and these are just either people have an extra machine or they're just not using it over the weekend for whatever reason. And through our web interface, we hit a couple of buttons, and it sends our files to their machine, renders on their machine locally, and sends us back the file as a DPX. We're rendering out to Cineons. So everything's done through the web. We did use NetRender for a little bit, but it didn't.
Dave, if you can hear us, you're breaking up.
Oh, okay. I'll slow down. Let me know if it's any better. Good, bad?
All right. You look like you're back.
Okay.
A little bit better. Yeah, I think you're back.
Okay, so it's all web interface driven, but we send it all through. We all use command line rendering. We use a little bit of Python, and it's all done through a command line interface. But the end user, just runs a little app on the background, and all of our files are hosted through a Subversion master repository, anyways. So the local user can just pull those down, but that's all done automatically for them. This is our crazy render pipeline.
Cool.
Yeah. Any more questions?
How many artists were involved?
How many artists were involved?
At our peak, across, because this is 4 parts now, so it's all combined together. At our peak, we had 20 people on the actual show. 2 of them were doing social media and helping us out with that. Some people were doing motion graphics. For example, we found an artist named Sammy out of France who made us the little thing at the end, the little ending bit. But at the peak, I would say about 20 people were involved with the whole thing. And on a week-by-week basis, I'd say about 10 to 15. Just depends. Some people are busy during the week. Some people dropped out towards the end because they either had class or whatever. But I'd say on average about 10 to maybe 15, but at the peak at about 20 people. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. It's a nice group out there. Cool. Hi.
Yeah, sorry. I realized you were just staring at me here, so you can see the group.
Yeah, I can. That's cool. Cool stuff.
All right. Any other questions for Dave? Nope.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for watching it.
By the way, Dave is one that's hosting our Zoom meeting, broadcasting on the internet and recording. So he kind of does that, kind of like a sponsorship of the group. So we want to always thank Dave for that, taking time out of his busy day to do that. So.
Sure. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you guys. Glad we could do it.
What question? One more question.
One more question for you, Dave.
What was the, it sort of looked like you didn't want to blend the edges or something.
So he was asking about the reasoning behind the blackout lines between blackout lines on the characters.
There's a stylistic choice.
Did you get that?
Yeah, I got your part of it. Why black outlines on the characters and sometimes on the set. That's a stylistic choice on behalf of our director. His name is Evan DeWeiler, and he really liked the more like Looney Tunes, the 50s, 60s, 40s kind of look, cell shading, right? We're trying to mimic that style. So we experimented with a few ideas. We played with Fresnel for a little bit, but we ended up going with black outlines because stylistically he just liked the look of it. It felt like it was a cell shading on top of a background, and so that's why we ended up sticking with it.
Yeah, makes the characters pop from the background.
It does. It adds. It's a little layer of subtlety. A lot of 2D cartoons, of course, have it, but it's kind of silly to see it in a CG cartoon and a 3D cartoon. But we realized that it actually helps us out a lot. It gives like a line weight, and you're right, it makes them pop out. So it's just stylistically, no other reason other than we think it's cool.
We had a comment that says we think Van Gogh started that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, all right, Dave. Well, thanks again. I think we're going to transition to our next topic, which would be Sam. Sam, if you want to come on up, start setting up. Okay, we can, sure. Why don't we just take a little social break, 5 minutes, everybody grab a drink, use the facilities, Rex.
Can we have Rex do a little spiel since he's our host?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Rex is our host.
Thanks, Rex.
Guys, thank you very much for coming. It's an honor to have such talented, such dedicated professionals as yourself. And myself, a Blender enthusiast. I don't spend nearly as much time with Blender as I should, especially to be amongst you. However, I'm very happy that our CTO is a huge fan of Blender here at the company and has offered to host the meetings here with JT and Stirling on a regular basis. However, and moving forward, hopefully there will be some collaborations and help facilitate the Blender artist community in however potential that we can. Absolutely.
Great. All right, thanks, Rex.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Yeah, why don't we take a 5 minute break? So you guys talk amongst yourselves.
So, yeah, my name is Vila. I'm visual effects artist. I've been working in different productions. These days I'm more into the real-time content. I also working with Blender and the game engine. So today I'm going to do I say that I didn't have enough time to work very much in these shots because that was kind of like my side job. So when I was like finishing my main job and I was coming home, it was kind of like difficult sometimes to get enough time to work in these shots. So excuse if the quality is like not perfect at all, but at least you can get the idea about how to improve some of the visual effects. So let's see if we can start with this. I have a few examples that I can show you today. The first one is for a feature film. It was shot here in California. It's like a horror film, so they shoot the entire movie, but they wanted to like increase the plot moments or like the scary moments. So they request me to put some fake plot on some of the shots. So I can show you the original clip and then the final one, and then I can do a small presentation about how is this assembled in Blender. I have to say that this visual effect is a little bit Yeah, it's it's a little bit explicit, so just make sure that you are okay before I can play it. So let's see, this is the original clip. So as you can see, it was not blood at all in the ground. So now I'm going to show you the final one. So looks
Sorry, could you
kind
show
of
your
like
screen so we can see it?
working, but actually it was very problematic to have this effect kind of like workable, because when they shoot this scene, they really didn't care about the camera settings, or they didn't even thought that we will be adding this later on. So that was like a final decision in the very last moment. So basically they has many problems, for example, with the blurriness in the ground, because they had to use like at least 8 points all the time to have like a good tracking and not like any kind of wave movement in the layer with the blood. So it was kind of like difficult to track some of the stones around. So sometimes it was like almost impossible to find 8 constant track points all the time. But I was like using small stones here and there, and finally I could find my 8 points of tracking, and I could assemble this shot. So now I'm going to show you the scene in Blender. So if you have any questions or something, just tell me and we can go. Yeah, it was kind of tricky to find these 8 points because it's very, very blurry all the time. The camera movement is kind of crazy, so it was a little bit difficult. So this is the scene in Blender. As you can see, it's a very basic scene. It's basically 3 planes. With just blood animation. So I just use this blood splatter as a texture, and basically it's a library. I think it's called Action Essentials. It's very well known in visual effects. So basically, I went to the movie clip editor and I tracked the original clip. Happened megabytes or something like that, but as you can see, there is the 8-point tracking that it was a nightmare to find out. So this is how it looks once it's tracked in Blender. So it's basically just 3 planes, and then I render these 3 planes as a flat image, and I composite this. The composition was very easy as well. So basically, once you have the tracking working, it's very easy to just put a new layer with the blood on top. And the other thing will be just do like a masking for the movement of the actors, so the blood doesn't show up on top of the actors. So basically, this is the final result with the blood. That's yeah, the actors are rotoscope, and then it was just the plane with the blood on top, on the bottom. Sorry.
What did you do for the dark and shadows?
It was kind of like flat render. I don't even use any lighting at all. So if you've seen I was like in composition basically. So in blend file, for example, you can see that the textures that I'm using, they're kind of like shadeless option. So it's just like how it looks in the original clip with the blood. And then I adjusted the color and the curvatures of the color in post-production, but it was basically this, not very complex shot. The most complex thing was just the tracking, and then the composition is not very, very complicated. So, yeah.
Did you do the rotoscoping in Blender, or?
It's quite easy and friendly to use in Blender. It's quite powerful. Chris is going to show you later on how powerful can be with this Mocha Blend and all these things. But I actually did the composition in After Effects because I have more control over some features that I don't have in Blender with nodes and all these things, you know.
How long did it take to do that shot?
This, I was kind of like putting few hours to one day and few hours another day. In total, I will say maybe 5 hours. Yeah, but it was like one day I was putting 1 hour, next day I was putting 2, or next day 1 again. So I would like to just focus in one shot and do it in straight away, you know. But because that's my side job, sometimes it's difficult to combine those things, you know, or to be concentrate just doing things.
The tracking requiring kind of manual override coach you.
No, it was working perfectly. As obviously, some a particular stone. I don't know if I can show the tracking points in here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So. So as you can see, sometimes I was using small parts or small debris or stones, and I didn't have to manually tweak anything. It was perfect, the tracking. But to find these 8 points of reference all the time, it was very difficult because I was using just disappear because it was very blurry. So then I had to dismiss that tracking point and find another one. At the end, it was very, very tricky to find 8 possible tracking points.
Planes are they 2D planes or are they 3D?
This is 3D planes.
So
it's like a normal plane that you can create.
Figures out the 3D location.
No, it's a static. It's the camera that it's moving. The planes are on the same place all the time. So it's the camera that is moving.
Camera motion is reconstructed.
Yeah.
Were you brought in after the fact to add the flood, or did they always intend to have the shot be a visual effects shot?
Can you repeat, sorry?
I'm just curious, during the production, were they intending to bring you in to add parts of the shot?
Oh, no.
Or they just decided later, oh, the shot's
Yeah, exactly. That was the point. Because they want to raise the fund, so they can promote the movie in a much better way, you know. They kind of hire me to increase the quality in some of the shots. So basically, this was not planned at all, and that's why I had many problems. Because if you have an idea that you want to do a shot like this before, for example, you just crank up the shutter speed in the camera settings. So when you have some kind of camera movement, usually the image, the pixels are kind of more stable. So it's not, you don't have this kind of blurriness all over the screen. So this is the tricks that obviously, if you know that you're going to have a visual effect like this, you set up the camera in a different way. But they never thought about set up the camera like this.
What about finding the settings of the camera? Did you try to match the settings they had there?
Yeah, that's also another problem. Usually when you're shooting a visual effect shot, you measure everything. You measure the camera lens, you measure the tracking points, physical tracking points. You have many other parameters that you can control. But in here, it was guessing more than any other thing. But I think it was kind of accurate. It was I think 1.5 pixels of error, which is not so bad. Ideally, it would be 1 or less than 1, but 1.5 is not so bad. 2 is kind of bad.
Was it hard to figure out the lens focal length and the chip size and the shutter speed?
No, I think it was just guessing an error, and I found something that it was working, and I think finally it works quite decent.
if you guys send that information to solver built in, it actually do some improvements to your solve. And then there's pre-stencil techniques. There's a way. That's the crazy about Blender. There's always a way. Sometimes it's completely around the building to go back next door. But that's a way.
Okay, so yeah, that's it for this visual effect. It was very, very simple. So now I'm going to show you another one that is far more complex. In general, I ran into all kind of problems. With this one, I hit the limitations of Blender very badly. So I had to be a kind of like imaginative with solutions. So let me show you. Okay, I'm going to introduce you a little bit about the next visual effects. This is for a Spanish movie. That's like the second part of a Spanish movie. It's a low-budget movie. I know the director, so he's a good friend, so he asked me to do this visual effect, also to improve the quality. So it was kind of like a favor more than anything. And I couldn't also spend very much time as I would like to do, but at the end, I kind of like make it work. So show you the original sequence. So it's kind of like an action movie. Forget the color, look, and these things. It's going to be improved later on. So basically what we're seeing here is like the hero of the movie saving the girl, as usual. As you can see, there is like these chains of curtains, and they wanted to have like an explosion in this moment. So as you can see in this shot, there is no more chains. They removed this. So I had to create like a explosion propagating in the screen and all the details that involve the explosion. So yeah, I had to break down what I had to work on this shot. So I had to think, okay, so first thing I need the 3D curtain, and then this has to be dynamically animated because it has to react with an explosion, and then I need the explosion as well, and then it's going to have many other details all around because you have like this heat that comes from the explosion, so you have to create like distortion on the background, and then maybe put some fire in the background as well, maybe some cracks in the wall because the explosion that is happening inside. So there's many details and these kind of explosion shots that you see in the movies. And as I said, I would like to spend 2 or 3 times the amount of time that I've been doing for this one. I couldn't spend time, but I'm going to show you the result. So let me show you slowly, if I can. Obviously, with the audio, kind of like helps. Let me show you some of the details. Okay, so for example, what you can see in here is the wall doesn't have any crack in here, so I had to like create a layer with like cracks in the wall that is like showing up in the particular moment of the explosion when it happens. So you can see like it's starting to crack the wall, and finally you see like very severe crack in the wall. Then I put the fire on the background and the flowers, the plants. Then also you can see like the heat distorting the background, especially in the palm tree in here. The fire was with the smoke simulator in Blender. I'm going to show you in a moment. And then the chains, this one, was made with the hair particles, and the hair particles was kind of like deforming a huge density 3D mesh made by thousands of chains. So it was kind of like complex, slow, and very painful to animate this kind of movement. And basically that was the second idea that I had for the chains, because the first idea was to use like rigid bodies for control all the chains, and I end up like using, I think, 20,000 like torus shapes, and it was like very, very slow. It was painfully slow. That's something that I hit the limit with Blender, and that's something that I was looking forward to have in Blender, the new depth graph, because obviously when you don't have a project in Blender that you don't have like 10,000 or 20,000 objects, it's not bad, but when you have this kind of project that you have to deal with 20,000 objects, it's like super, super slow. Not even the viewport. I'm not talking about the viewport, because I can make these shapes like boxes, so it doesn't hit the performance on the visual aspect. But it was like the way that Blender deals with the data, like having to read all these objects every frame was like painfully slow. So I hope that the new deck graph is going to help by being able to accomplish scenes with thousands of objects in these kind of situations. So because of this, I had to use the hair particles and kind of like faking. Was not like the way I wanted, but yeah, as you can see, at least I can have like some kind of behavior of the explosion with the curtain.
So the hair particles interact with each other? Can they self-intersect?
I had like two different ones. I using like an odd and an even. So I have like two different rows of hair particles, and they kind of like interact with each other, but it's not like perfect, you know? So if you go frame by frame, you maybe see some weird problems, but obviously that was my only solution because. So I'm going to show you the 3D blend file in here.
You don't have to have all those things combined with each other. They don't have to be moving at the same time. So it should be.
Yeah, well, for example, this is the hair particle system. And
we're actually rewriting that statistics engine and particle engine. It's kind of all being very conservative. We're actually with the software people and private chat room, and we're actually designing it as we speak. We talked about it this morning to solve some of these issues. You get there's some really good particle physics.
So I have several layers in here. In this layer, for example, is only the curtains. So as you can see, it's like reacting to the explosion. Then I mask the actors, obviously, so you don't see penetration from the curtains. Then I had this is like what it deforms the actual geometry, because this is not geometry at all. This is just hair particles, as you can see in here. If I mute, can you see my screen in the Zoom application?
Yeah, I've been trying to tell you we can't actually see anything.
You got screen sharing turned on? Yeah. You should be able to see that.
Can you confirm?
I'm asking that. Nope, they can't see it.
Okay.
So you got to redo the sharing.
Where's the share?
Share another screen. There you go. Another screen. There you go. Yeah, you see the little toolbar on top.
Oh yeah. Okay. So should I explain the thing again, or? Okay. So basically, this is the hair particle system in here. Doesn't render anything. It's just deforming the other layer. So I'm going to show you the actual 3D meshes. This is the chains, as you can see. It's very dense. I think this is just one. Okay. What do you mean?
So when the chains blow out, what is it?
Yeah, I'm using I think like a cube with a force field inside, so it's like just pushing the hair particles. And I have, I think, like a vertex group on the top, so it doesn't affect the top part, but the rest. So yeah, this is what I was mentioning you, that by using rigid bodies, it was like very slow. Not even using rigid bodies, it's just like having this kind of geometry in Blender as separate objects. It's super, super bad to handle this data. So if I play the animation in here, it's super slow in comparison with the layer that I have in here. So for me, it's much easier to just preview like this. Then in another layer, I have the explosion. Together, and yeah, this is the final result. So as you can see, the fire in here is stock footage.
So you didn't try to render the hair particles as little chains.
Yeah, this is like the chains that you saw
So how
in the other layer.
map the chains onto the hair. Chain links. Did you try to map the chain links onto the hair?
Just basically the hair particles is like deforming the 3D chains.
Okay.
So what I render is not like the hair particles, as you can see in here. I'm rendering the other layer, which is like all the geometry in here. Yeah, maybe in the video you cannot like perceive everything, but all this is like 3D geometry. So it's very, very dense.
How do you accomplish that? Is that like a modifier on the geometry?
Yeah, I can show you. I made like an array with 110 these ones. And then I put like a particle instance. And basically it was like just deforming in the way that the particle instance is affecting the original particle hair.
You determine where to place the camera in relationship to the plane and the chain.
Well, I made like a 3D plane, and I tried to match the camera settings and also the planes from the wall and the ground and some other verticals and horizontals. So I was like just guessing as well. And then when I found like the position was kind of like there, you know, then I just started to place the 3D elements one on top of another one. So yeah. That's it. Yeah, there's a plugin. I think I tried, but it didn't work very well, so I just did it manually.
Yeah, it needs some help with that plugin.
At the end, I just did it manually.
So this, did you use Blender for compositing?
No, also After Effects. I did in Blender, I create the elements, but then the composition was made all in After Effects. Okay, so that's it. And then the last one I can show you is like a sneak peek because I'm still working on this one, but I can show you a little bit. Basically, I wanted to replicate some visual effects that I saw in the movie Avatar, like with these robots, that a guy is like inside of these robots controlling the robot. So basically, I record a guy like this and just like kind of like having a interaction with the green screen and then tracking points. So then I wanted also that the camera was not as close as to him as it is right now. So I had to like create like an additional 3D camera that was like matching the movement. So I wanted some kind of like, the camera is like approaching from far to getting close to him. So I kind of like replicate the camera movement. First I track the camera and then I have to use another camera to combine the both camera movements. So then I did a 3D model of the robot I want to use. So this is the 3D model. I made it like in 1 week, I think. So I was also very much in a rush. This is Cycles. I may render the final version in Octane render because I think I can get more quality. And also was kind of tricky sometimes to have the animation system working because there is some parts like this one that has like hydraulics and some other mechanical elements that has to be like interacting. So this is like a quick preview of what I want to do. So as you can see, the starting camera position is quite different from the original one, but it tracks perfectly as the original one. So I was like having to combine 2 cameras and it was like super painful. I think this is like maybe the most difficult visual effect I ever worked before, to have this kind of camera combined. And then I'm going to plan maybe to add some forest in the background or something that has some kind of like parallax. I had another video with parallax effect with this kind of forest and it was working quite nice. Also, I have to work much more in the animation, but I think that once I finish, I can have like a kind of decent visual effect to show in my reel. So yeah, I have another thing, but okay, this is something that we've been working in my work. We've been trying to develop a technology that combines 3D facial tracking, so you can get like facial expressions on real time in Blender, and you can make it work in the game engine and also in the viewport. So this is a quick test with the camera from the Xbox Kinect in real time. And we're still improving this, but at least you can have a look. So that's me at the right on real time. I get the same data on the Blender viewport.
So what's the software that you use to do the camera part?
The software that we use like a script that gets the data from Kinect.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it triggers this is blend shapes in Blender, shape keys, I think it's called. Yeah, shape keys in.
Did you guys write the script?
Yeah, we have to create the script. to get the data from Kinect in real time. This is actually triggering 48 shape keys for the camera movement, for the expressions and everything. But the next version that we're going to have in the next weeks is going to be able to use up to 90 facial expressions. So it's going to be like at least like twice as this one. And then we are going to add like more features on top of this system. So for example, there is not right now eye tracking. So we want to add like a secondary camera that is just like pointing into the face. So it's going to track every slightly movement of the pupils and the eyes. So I think we can improve a lot more this technology. Yeah.
Have you done speaking tests yet to see how it tracks?
Like the sync, audio sync? No, but this.
Well, just to get the visuals in first, but I mean, it looks like it's getting pretty close to where you could actually have the actor speaking.
Yeah. The plan is to have like someone that is creating a 3D character in real time and then kind of speak, and you can see like the performance on real time, like the final quality. So that's like our target. But obviously, this is like the beginnings.
That's a beautiful part.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so I think that's all for me. Shape keys. Yeah. In Maya, I think it's called blend shapes. In Blender, I think it's called shape. Just to deform.
How do you extract?
Well, you have a library of expressions. So this one, in this video, we have a library of 42 different expressions. So there is one expression that is just like moving the eyebrow a little bit, and another expression is like moving slightly the lip or something like that. So you have like a library.
I understand the blend shape. I don't understand how you extract.
Because
the coefficients for the shape.
Well, in the Kinect, you can assign points because it reconstructs the face, so you can assign different points. So we have a bones system also that is like triggering every.
Is that part of the Kinect software library?
No, we have an external software that is like creating like a pipeline or like a bridge between Kinect and Blender. But then we have like our own script to collect this data and then just putting the data in real time. Any other questions?
How many dinners does the director of the Mexican action movie still owe you?
No, actually they pay me, so I'm happy to finish that project and looking forward for more fun. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, folks, so we're going to break for pizza here. So getting all the top is in the back of the room. Rex and Kay were bringing big glasses and plates and everything, and then we'll come back and have a Christmas session afterwards. So.
And also watch and track it too. Similar to this.
So I'm just going to announce what JC put in here too, that there is an email list. It's
all finished.
listmanager@SoCalBlender.org. That's the mailing list for the Los Angeles Blender user group. And looks like they're going to take a little break, and then we'll get back into it.
Is that working? Okay. All right, this is my website, Good Spirit Graphics, and I'm going to show you an add-on that I made for Blender to integrate the tracking program Mocha from Imagineer Systems into Blender. And the first thing I'm sure the Blender devotees are going to say, well, Blender already does tracking, right? So why do we need to bring other tracking software in there? And the kind of tracking that Mocha does is planar tracking, and Mocha is used basically at every studio. Anytime people want to integrate with commercials or TVs or movies, they use Mocha. So if you want Blender to grow, you need tools that help people use Blender with their existing pipelines. They're not really going to have their artists use or learn everything Blender does. It just does too much. It does, you know, what half a dozen other major programs do. So if you can make Blender work with existing pipelines that people have, I think it'll help get Blender accepted in a lot of studios. Also, planar tracking works in a different way than point trackers, and there's a reason that, for example, Adobe packages Mocha with After Effects instead of trying to make their own planar tracker. It does things that point trackers don't do that well. For example, on shots, if you have blurry shots or slightly out of focus shots, point trackers have a real hard time with that sort of thing, whether they're point trackers in Blender or in After Effects or anywhere. So by being able to use a planar tracker that covers basically an area that you define with a spline, it allows you to track, you know, shots that are impossible to use, impossible to track in other software. It's also incredibly fast, and instead of, like, for example, Sam had to find 8 little rock points that would, you know, stay in view, Mocha does an excellent job of letting you specify an area, and then even if that area moves out of frame, it will continue to kind of extrapolate where the shape must have gone and use pixels that are still within the spline. And it can lose, like, I don't know, probably 80% of what you're trying to track out of frame and still sort of interpolate what you, how the plane must be moving to achieve that. So it lets you track things that aren't trackable in other software, for one thing. So it's a reason. It also won an Academy Award for a reason. Yeah, Mocha did.
Is the idea of a plane tracker that you're defining for the tracker areas that are on the same plane?
Yeah, exactly. Mocha, it looks for movement that is on a plane. So it's not really a point tracker that uses pixels. It's sort of doing a solve is what it's doing. It looks for an area that you define with a spline. And for example, I'll show you a little quick picture here of the Mocha interface. Okay, here's a car shot, and you'll see I drew a spline around the front of the car. Now this isn't technically a plane on the car, but when the area is close enough to a plane, like even at someone's face, with the nose is not obviously a plane, but Mocha does an excellent job of just drawing a spline around a face, and it will pick up the tilt and rotation and give you a plane that matches that movement of the person's face. So it's a planar tracker, but it's very effective at tracking things that aren't plane and treating them as planes. Well, it's basically, like in this view here, you'll see I drew a spline around the front of the car here. It's going to let you define like how many pixels in that area you want to use. And the more pixels you give it, the slower it runs, but the more accurate it is. And it's not letting you, it's not forcing you to pick out, for example, a spot on like the hood ornament or in the corner of a high contrast area. It basically works almost like magic. You would put the spline around here, hit track, and in just like a second, it finds a plane solution. For example, this car shot here, where if you try to do something like this with point trackers, you could waste hours trying to get a shot that doesn't have a lot of jitter in it. The other advantage is with Mocha, because it's looking at a large area, it sort of averages the error in the shot, in the track together. So point trackers are susceptible to what's called high frequency jitter. When you have a lot of noise in your video shot, they tend to wander around in a way that throws off camera solves. Planar trackers, because they are averaging sort of a large area, they appear rock solid when they give you a solution, which is why when you have to solve a shot, you put it in Mocha, like 10 seconds, you may have just saved 4 hours of work that you might have done in another application trying to get the same effect with point trackers. So this is here's the Mocha interface. Basically, you would just make a spline around a shape, hit track, and then you either do rotoscoping inside Mocha, or you export that track over to, for example, After Effects is what people often use, but Mocha exports to Nuke, After Effects, and most of the major programs that people use. So I had the crazy idea, well, why not try to integrate it into Blender? And I started working on this, and then met the CEO of Imagineer Systems at the convention last summer, and he was very supportive of the idea and gave me a pro version of the software to work with to try to integrate it. And after all that work, I have a product here that is about to go on sale. It is a premium add-on for Blender. I have to recoup all the work I put into this thing. I've made a couple free add-ons before, but this one I think I'm going to have to charge for. And if you go to my website, you'll see there is a kind of site within a site here that explains what Mocha Blend is. That's the name of the product. And it shows you how you can integrate it with other applications. It also lets you bring paths from Photoshop, After Effects, and Mocha in a different way into After Effects. And there's a plugin for After Effects that comes with Mocha Blend that lets you export animated rotoscope shapes from After Effects. So if you have done rotoscoping in After Effects and you want to move it into Blender, this will do it also. So this is really a pipeline tool to bring Mocha and After Effects, and as a result, anything that After Effects will load basically as a path. It can be a mask in After Effects or a shape in After Effects, as long as it's defined by Bezier points. And that is in After Effects, basically, it has to have a path property. If it has a path property, then this Mocha Blend exporter will then export it over to Blender with this Mocha Blend plugin. This part is inside Blender, and this part is inside After Effects. The other way is just to go straight from Mocha using its export. You just copy to the system clipboard, and then you paste the data straight into Blender with my plugin. And here is the plugin in the movie clip editor view right here. So anybody have any questions on this part so far, or does it all make sense? Or I've been doing this for so many months, it's clear in my head, but it might not be in yours since. Okay. So here's basically the car shot that you can see in Mocha. I tracked it in here. I've already exported the data, so I don't have to waste time trying to track it and export it from Mocha. It's quick, but we are limited on time. So if I go ahead and instead of pasting data, which would be going straight from Mocha into Blender, I will go to Load Data and try to find my folder on his computer. Let's see here. I think it's in Mocha Exports, and this is car front. Okay, so we will load this, and Mocha Blend loads it in. It reads the format, tells you we have corner pin data loaded, the frame range, and a few other bits of information here. I will uncheck this. It will tell you if you have your Blender settings set up correctly. You see this format here doesn't match what Blender's doing right now. So we can press Import Mocha Format, and that will bring it all over into Blender. And we don't need a Mocha Blend camera, and I'll explain that later. At this point, we are in the tracker view here. So one quick thing we can do is basically import Mocha's whole plane solution into Blender, let you do your rotoscoping in Blender if you want. This is one thing it can do. Often people rotoscope in Mocha because you can attach splines to your solution and they will move with the object. So it makes rotoscoping incredibly fast. Then people would export those into Nuke or After Effects. I found a way to integrate this into Blender. So if we go ahead and hit, under Movie Clip Editor here, create corner pen trackers, you'll see this is the Mocha solution brought into Blender. Now if I go ahead and select all these trackers, we can sort of play a little trick on Blender here. And normally Blender is looking to solve point trackers and make a plane that you could use for a corner pin or some other purpose within Blender. But if I hit Create Plane Track here, and then simply move Blender's points onto our Mocha solution, like so. Okay. Mocha Blend has created a Mocha object here, which contains its solution here. We'll go over into mask mode. And let's just turn this off for 1 second. We'll make a little mask around here in Blender, right, say around the grill. We'll select it all and just convert these little points to, for example, auto. All right, now if you wanted to rotoscope out this grill, normally you would have to move this around on each frame, insert keyframes, and to do an accurate track with a lot of shapes, it can take a lot of time. With this technique, we can do in Blender what I think you can only do in Mocha. Mocha doesn't export its solution to any other application as far as I know. So we will go ahead and select our Mocha solution here. And I think all we need to do is go down to Mask Make Parent, turn off our Mocha solution. And if I did it right, that spline is now magically going to track everything in the car. It's used. Okay. Now, I don't think you can do this in any other application. I don't think Mocha exports a solution that's usable to Nuke or After Effects or any other program. So this is one advantage. Yeah? I'm cheating a little bit. I'm using a corner pin export out of Mocha, but implicit in the corner pin data is Mocha's actual plain solution. So it's not intended to be used this way, but I can it's sort of a backdoor. I can make Blender, treat what it thinks are just points on a point trackers, and it will basically convert Mocha's planar track solution into a Blender planar track solution. Then you just basically draw. It's a 3D solution, yes, in the sense that Mocha solves points that it has to figure and project onto a plane in a 3D mathematical construct. It doesn't. This is not a 3D camera solve where you have a camera moving around in the scene, but it's a mathematical 3D solve. Is what it's doing.
If you're doing like a bilinear interpolation of the corner pin, then there's some radical move of the car. So
Mocha solves perspective changes. So its solution down here, basically, you pick what you have in your shot. In this shot, I had translation, scale, rotation, and shear on. I may have had perspective when I solved it. I'm not sure. But you tell Mocha what is in your shot. And so it's doing a 3D solution with perspective changes. Now, this should be a very useful tool. You can add as many shapes as you want and just parent them onto your Mocha solution. And if you want to adjust them, say it's not perfect, for example, you just select all your points, put a keyframe in there, and if you split the window here, not that way. Yep. All right, this little mouse is a little hard to use. There, split it this way. I think this is the movie clip editor, right? It's sort of in the wrong place in Blender. I think they need to move it. If we go here, you'll see we have a keyframe here for this. Now, if I go to another frame, that's a little too far. So we don't have that many frames. There's only 24 in this shot. If we go to another shot and you say your little thing's off a little bit, I'll move it way off just for demonstration purposes. Insert another keyframe here. Then you can correct what it's doing with keyframes in Blender, but you may only have to put a couple to make something line up, and it will basically ride these keyframes on top of the Mocha solution. Okay? So let's see, what else can we do with this? Let's take a quick look at another shot. All right, here is a shot that shows, this is a finished shot that I did. that shows a picture frame coming into view from the right side. It's running at like quarter speed here, or half speed, and you see some smoke and a cigarette with James Dean in it. Now the picture.
So right out here on the wall.
The picture frame's moving out of frame to the left. Now, what point trackers won't let you do is it won't let you draw a spline, for example, around this picture frame and come up with an easy track when something's moving off. Mocha lets you do that. In this shot in Mocha, I drew a spline around the outside of the frame. I drew another secondary spline around the inside of the picture, which is just black, to catch, to basically block out that area and not make Mocha try to track reflections on the glass. So it basically tracked this outside part and not this inside part. Everything you see in here was inserted in Blender. The picture of James Dean was blended in to capture the reflections in the room. The smoke is a simulation, and the cigarette is also a 3D object. So if we go ahead and take a look at, and this is not a camera solve, by the way. This was done in kind of a reverse way where the camera is stationary and all the objects in the scene are moving, and I'll show you how that was set up very quickly here. Okay, see, here's the actual shot here, and let's see here. If I go into camera view here, and it's number pad here, we are missing okay, we'll drop our video into here. All right, on the left is the movie clip editor, and there we go. All right, so here's the original video. And under clip, we can put set scene frames. And you'll see, here's the actual shot here. It's basically a picture frame. You want to shoot these shots with basically a piece of black paper behind the glass. That way you catch only the reflections in your shot. And then when you do your insert, you blend them with, I think, the screen mode, and it will put the reflections blended with it and make it look, you know, for all practical purposes, identical to the way it would look in the real room. If you shoot it correctly, it'll work correctly. But you don't want to put tracking markers inside anywhere on the picture frame, because that is going to ruin your final product. Because you want all the reflections, you see there's a door here, something on the wall. You want all these reflections to be captured and blended in with your insert. Yeah, no, you see if I move it through the scene, you'll see this is the wall behind on the other side of the picture, on the other side of the camera. And the way to really sell a shot like this is to always have real room reflections in them and not try to fake them later. They'll never really look right if you try to do that. So we've loaded the shot into the movie clip editor, and if we go ahead and go to the tools panel here, where was I on clip? Here, it's set as background. That will move the video into the 3D view. And you can turn off your transparency, turn up opacity, and you'll see it in the camera view here. Now, what I did to make this shot actually work is, let's see, where is my picture frame? I think I've lost a layer with my picture frame on it. Oh, here we are. Okay, we don't have our scene frame set. Let's see. Set scene frames. That'll set our range here better. All right, so the way this was done is the camera is a stationary camera, and it is using a corner pen insert from Mocha to put the picture on. And if I rotate around, you'll see what we have is a 3D cigarette protruding through the plane that is moving with a Mocha translation solve. And I've attached to it a little smoke simulation box, some wind, and these are all rendered on separate layers. So the photograph is just a 2D plane that's moving. The camera is stationary, so instead of having a camera solve where the camera is moving and you're seeing basically everything else is moving past it. It works in this shot nicely, and I don't think you still get a perspective shift in your final version here, and I don't think you can see anything wrong perspectives-wise. The smoke overlaps the background in the image, and it looks actually just like a camera solve. It's really not, but it works. Because you don't always need a camera solve. Sometimes you can do something much more simply, like in a shot like this where a camera is moving laterally across a shot. 3D camera solve is kind of superfluous. It complicates things in a way. For some shots, it's easier. For a shot like this, it's much simpler just to leave the camera and just move your whole little smoke sim box with the Mocha tracking data. It doesn't require really any, there's no really reason not to do it this way. It's just people aren't used to working in this direction.
It's object tracking where you
Yeah, so, and everything's moving two-dimensional. All these objects here in Blender, let's see, here's Blender. Yeah, all these objects are basically just moving across the screen, as you see, like this. So the whole simulation is simply moving across. In the final shot, you can't tell the difference. So any questions about this application of it, or?
So the table and that wasn't shot with the camera?
Yeah, that was shot with the camera, yeah. And that was tracked in Mocha. So the picture frame, basically, if we go back into the camera view, I gave Mocha, let's see, camera. We are not in our camera here. There we go. I gave Mocha the picture frame from the original shot to track, and then just exported the corner pin solution into Blender with my program. Yeah, here we go. So this is what was shot, and this is what was tracked in Mocha. It came up with basically the four corners of the inside of the frame, and some transform information, which I loaded into Blender through Mocha Blend. And that transform information was used, if I can move this over, here we go. The transform information was used to apply to an empty, and everything was just parented to that empty. So that empty is moving with Mocha's transform solution. Yeah, it's a little confusing because this isn't the way it's typically done, but it's a very easy workflow, and it doesn't require a camera solution. Because you can't tell the difference. It's not a 3D camera solve, but in the final shot, you don't need a 3D camera solve. So why use one? It's a simpler solution, basically. Let's take a look at something else here. Okay, here we go. Now there is a camera solver in Mocha. It works different than camera solvers in After Effects or Blender or Synthesize. It uses planes that you track in Mocha, so it's good for solutions that you can't get in other software, and it will come up with a camera solution that you can load into Blender. And let's see, if I go ahead and load one of those in, I think I have a camera solve already exported from Mocha. I'll load it into Mocha Blend here. Let's see, import our format. Just go to a fresh layer in the 3D view. And hit Create Camera Solve. All right, here is a shot out of Mocha, and now you see a camera that is actually moving. This is a Mocha Camera Solve. It's been loaded into Blender, and it is a very simple one of just 4 planes. This is I loaded some video into Mocha and just tracked a couple of planes. And if I can find the folder it's in here. Yeah, here it is, straight dolly. It's right here. All right, I'll just drop the first sequence from the ping sequence in here. All right, we'll go into camera view. And we'll switch the backdrop here by going to clip, set as background. And here is the original video that was tracked in Mocha. It is basically, let's see, there are 4 walls, a ceiling and a floor. And the black areas there are the 2 actual physical planes that were created from Mocha in the camera solution. You can probably see them better if they're have the material on them or something here. It just makes them shadeless. Give them a color so you can see them better. There you go. Okay, so here's the original video in white. These blue planes are 3D planes created in Blender. And when Mocha exported the solution, it gave me a camera and the 2 planes that I tracked in Mocha. So you could basically put a picture on these frames. If you were doing like a movement through a room, you might do an insert on a picture frame, something like that. It's a solution that works for doing insert shots. It's not a camera solution that you would use for set extensions or some more complicated shots, but it's Mocha's version of a camera solve. And my program here will import basically several different types of data, and one of them is a camera solution from Mocha. The other things Mocha exports are corner pin solutions, camera solutions, transform data, and one other. All right, so any questions on this so far? With
Export Blender trackers from Mocha?
No, I can't go that direction. I'm taking, Mocha doesn't provide any kind of script path plugin. So there's no way to really bring anything into Mocha. Mocha is really not meant to be used all by itself. It's always meant to be used with another application, whether it's Nuke or After Effects or Hit Film, or I think there's a lot of different applications it works with. Now you can do more with it in Blender than you can do in any other single application. You can do a simple thing here, where if I just drop a little shot in here, I'll show you how quickly you can attach something on. Let's see. Triangle footage, here we go. All right, here's a simple shot of a triangle that is moving around in the scene. And you see it is scaling also. It simply moves up, rotates, and scales. It's a test shot I made to try to make sure that my plugin is working correctly. It is in the backdrop here. We'll go ahead and delete our old shot here. Delete. All right, now we will load in some Mocha tracking data. This is triangle transform with scaling. All right, this is an export from Mocha. Mocha Blend loads it in. It tells me we have our settings wrong. Import Mocha settings. And in the 3D view, we'll create a transform empty. And let's see, do we need to reset our camera? We don't have a camera, okay? Let's go ahead and create a camera. Mocha Blend will create a 2D orthographic camera for you. And you'll see our transform here is now moving perfectly with our footage. So if you want to attach a 3D object, is this thing not on GLSL? Let's see here. No, it is. Okay. Let's just put a material on. Rotate our little head up. And this is, usually on my computer I just get a shaded view here at this point. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. I don't have any lights in the scene, so shadeless normally just shows it. But there's a setting different on here, but you'll get the idea anyway. If I parent now this, this guy to the empty, let's see, we want this empty here, which is Mocha Blend Transform 1. Let's just take our little Suzanne and parent it up. And that is the wrong one. Here, this is the one. All right, we'll just parent it up to the empty. And now our object will basically move along with rotation and scaling along with our footage. I don't think you can do this in any other application with Mocha either. So there's things you can do in Mocha because Blender is a 3D app that you can't do in other programs easily. I'm probably running out of time, but there's a whole stabilization section here that lets you use this, lets you stabilize footage in ways you also can't do easily in other applications. You pick basically what you want to stabilize in any combination of things, and Mocha Blend will set up a node tree for you using the Mocha data.
So when will this be out?
Hopefully next week. Yeah, okay, go ahead. I will hit, let's see, stabilize using this transform information we loaded in from Mocha. And let's see, we're probably not in the right setting or something.
Looked more like a node bush.
That was a no bush? Yeah.
The node forest.
There we are. All right, this basically just took the transform information from Mocha, and it took my input here. I told it to stabilize everything, translation, rotation, scale, and center the final image. It created this node tree here, which is a group, and it took all the Mocha data here and lined it up in a way that will now take your original footage and stabilize it. You'll see the triangle is now not moving, it's not rotating, and it's not scaling. So you can pick what you want to stabilize. You can pick one thing, for example, just scale. It allows you to do stabilization that I don't think you can do easily in other applications. There's scripts in After Effects that let you do some things, but here it lets you use Mocha in ways you really can't anywhere else, I think. In the compositor, in the 3D view, and also in the movie clip editor, the way it lets you attach splines to its shape and do rotoscoping much faster. So there you go. It started off as just a little quick idea. Can you make Mocha work in Blender? And months and thousands of lines of code later, it's done.
We do have a question from the Zoom chat.
Yes.
Let's see. Utox wants to know how does that plugin work with camera distortion, etc. Okay.
If you want to, you could use Blender. Basically, Blender has lens correction in the movie clip editor, right? So you could do lens correction inside Blender with the footage. It's sort of it sort of depends on the artist which way you go. Do you lens correct first, or do you add lens distortion to your rendered output from Blender? There's no reason why it wouldn't work in your workflow however you're doing it now. Some people do lens correction to the original shot, track it. Some people track it with the original shot and then apply the lens correction later. There's two schools of thought on that. I don't think it would interfere with whatever method you use.
How much?
I'm thinking $30. I think $35 was the price that the Blender Cookie guy put on his, what was it? It was the contours, right? On the contours, he put a $35 price, which at the time I thought, that's kind of high. I was thinking something lower to try to get sales up, but he had a good result with that. Last time I checked, which was 2 months ago, he'd sold hundreds of copies of it. So it seemed like I was undershooting a little bit what people might be willing to pay for things that save you a lot of time. No, because actually you could probably charge a lot more for a plugin like this. I'm just going to try $30 and see what happens. I have no way of doing any market research on it because there isn't a lot of, there's no real long track record of premium plugins with Blender. There's a lot of people in the Blender community that recoil at the thought of paying for a plugin because everything has to be free in their mind. And it shows because a lot of the plugins work on one version of Blender. They're never updated again. And there's lots of plugins I'd like to use in Blender, but the author has no motivation to continue to fix them. So they just sit unused. And they crash Blender frequently. There's some good motion trail ones that just don't work with later versions of Blender. So I agree with the CGCookie guy that the only way to really have professionally maintained plugins is to provide some kind of incentive for people to update them. A thing like Mocha Blend is it's not a few lines of code, it's a lot. And when the developers at Blender break it by changing something inside Blender, I could spend a lot of time going to fix it and make it work with the new version of Blender. That's why most of the older plugins, that a lot of them were useful, they don't work. They work partially, or they'll even just outright crash Blender, which Motion Trails does. It just takes the whole program down. I think for something like this, the premium model, I think, is the only way to kind of raise the stature of Blender and make it more of a professional tool and not just like a hobbyist tool with sort of semi-functional add-ons.
I got a question if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
On the Maya side of things, what a lot of people like to do is like it's $35 for like a year of support and upgrades and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you would probably consider, or you think it would just be like a one-time and that's all that you get?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have to think about that. You're with Mocha Blend, you're getting kind of two programs in one. You're getting the After Effects plugin, and you're getting the Blender add-on. as a package, they're sold as one unit. I'll no doubt have to, bug fix. On my website, there's an area where you can go to support, and you can see if there's any known issues that people have reported. There's a couple right now that I know don't work 100% in here. You can submit bug reports to it. I'll fix them and send new versions to the people who bought them. I'm a little unsure if that's just forever, or if people should have to basically pay for an upgrade after like a year or like a major revision. I don't know. It's kind of uncharted territory with premium add-ons with Blender.
Yeah, sure. I think you're going to be blazing new trails here between you and Jonathan. So I would buy it. Let's put it that way. I think it's a great handy tool.
Yeah, I think it could save you hours on simple things. And anytime a company is using it in their pipeline, if they can save hours doing something, they're going to pay $100. They're going to pay a lot of plugins on these programs. After Effects, they cost a lot, but they save a lot. It seems like $200 or for Boris effects, those things, they're expensive, but they save people enormous amounts of time. So it's nothing to a company to pay for a plugin when it saves them thousands of dollars in man hours.
Could you use that plugin inside of an actual game, or would it work? Work with the game?
It's not set up. I mean, I could, if there was things in it you want to move your Mocha data into Blender or something from animated paths from After Effects. It's conceivable. I mean, once the data is inside Blender, which Mocha Blend brings it inside, you could write some subroutine to fan it out to the game engine, or do put those animated shapes somewhere else. Yeah.
So what does Mocha cost?
Mocha has several versions. Mocha comes free with After Effects. Adobe, realized that they could probably never make a planar tracker as good as Mocha. It was already established, so they basically contracted with them to provide it free with every version of After Effects. So for years, it's just come with After Effects. The Pro version, I think the Pro version is over $1,000. They frequently have sales where it's $700 or $800. The After Effects version has sort of an upgraded version where you pay $200 from your kind of low-level, entry-level Mocha that comes with After Effects. So it's not prohibitively expensive. It's not like Nuke, where you're paying thousands for something. A lot of people already have it because they bought one of the creative suites from Adobe. You already have it if you bought CS4, 5, 6.
There may be lots of people that are using the source situation, Blender and relatively expensive.
Yeah, especially because it lets you integrate Mocha into a 3D world, which After Effects really doesn't. It's a 2.5D world, and you can't really work with 3D shapes easily in it. It lets you do things that you just can't do in any other way. It lets you do things you can do in Nuke or After Effects, but it lets you do them with an easier workflow in Blender. So I think as an overall solution, it should attract anyone who's using Mocha in film and TV, which is everyone. If they want to add some 3D effect to it, you can do it in Blender a lot easier. So before I take up any more time,
All right, so we're running just a little behind schedule. Rex tells me it's okay if we run just a little bit over 2. What we're going to do is have a session here from JT on a new add-in you're working on. Yeah. Do you need me to pull up Blender for you, or?
Nope.
Nope.
I just need to know where it's at.
Okay.
Where do you have?
I'm going to close this down then. Yes, I want to click. And then bring it up here.
Just in program files, right?
There you go, buddy.
Okay. So actually, I just, this is akin to a pipeline application launcher. I coded this years ago, and I just recoded it for the newer operating systems. It's multi-platform. I just this morning, while I was sitting here, ported it from Linux to Windows. So we'll see. It uses a program called Lazarus. It's a IDE to develop software. It will export as a Blender Python module, so it'll be usable in Blender, called up as a Python module, so it'll expose all of its data. Right now, it's still in the alpha stage, so it's an external program. let me show it to you real quick. I need to get to my stick.
So the idea is it's like a shotgun style.
Yeah, it's like Shotgun's app launcher. It's like any pipeline app launcher. It's basically to manage your applications during the pipeline. It doesn't manage the workflow, like you don't send notes and images to each other. It's also meant to run multiple versions of Blender, so you can use it with Chris's Blender and seamlessly exit one Blender, enter another Blender, and automatically put the data file into the new Blender. So you'll see when I actually run the UI. I've used this in production, so I know exactly what it does. I've been told by several people who I've tried to explain it to that I need to do videos. So, and again, this is alpha, it's not fully developed, but this is a deceptively looking simple program, but it's actually a very complex system that works really, really well. I helped design the one-click interface for Avid in Avid products. Back when you had to do 14 clicks for everything, when Avid products finally, you only had to do 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks, that was me. I'm the one that contributed that to Avid because it drove me nuts. We were all wanting to choke all the Avid developers because everything was like a scientist. It was a scientific adventure to get anything done in Avid's products. So this is that same concept where you take 15, 20, 30 clicks during your workflow and you get rid of all of those clicks and everything is boom, boom, boom. So we got quite a few windows open here. No worries. I need to go back. Was I on the desktop? Is that where you had my folder? Okay. All right. Copy and replace. Copy and replace. Okay. This is it. Again, it's deceptively simple. It looks really like it doesn't do anything. But the key is this bad boy right here. This is a big window. Let's see here. This is an any file. What you do is you set up your, I love you Windows. This was actually wrote in Linux. And like I said, I just ported it. There was a few UI things and that was it. So basically what you're doing here is it's an INI file and you set up each one of these. Okay, where's my program? You set up each one of these run fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my INI file. There it is right there. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to any command lines or any workflow where I have a data file. Here's my data file in this drop down right here. 2 cubes is a blend file. We're going to actually make that in just a second. I need to actually find Blender though. But to give you a real quick, Notepad is already in the path so I can run it. You can see down here, I've already put in Notepad right here into my INI file. So all I got to do is click Notepad and it runs Notepad for me. Okay. So as you have, these are really wide windows. So what you do is you start from the top with your pipeline. Like here in the demonstration, you'll see I have FFmpeg for compressing video, and I actually have some settings. This is from my Linux side. So you can see these settings all the way up here also. So what you would do was your 3 favorite settings for FFmpeg, you just load into the GUI. So you're never remembering what you have to type in for FFmpeg for your output settings. You literally come here, you click run for Blender, do your file, you go right back out to this piece of software and you click R down here and it automatically compresses it for FFmpeg. So you don't use Blender's internal, you just sequence, save, go right to your next button, hit click, and it's all done for you automatically. Where normally you're opening up command windows, oh, what's that command, or what's the parameter, or this, and you don't realize it's 10, 15 minutes later before you're sending the command to FFmpeg, and you don't realize you burned 15 minutes just to compress the video the way you wanted to after you got out of Blender. This, you set up the INI file. The cool part about it is you can have one executable and you drop aliases, or you drop symlinks, or you drop, what are they called in Windows? Shortcuts. You drop shortcuts in Windows, and it automatically can tell if you have an INI file where the shortcut is. If not, it defaults to the executable files INI file.
So you have a default configuration. So you drop all these shortcuts all over the place, and wherever there's a shortcut, if there's an INI file, it uses that. So every workflow that you have in your main folder that you have that workflow, you just drop an INI file in a shortcut. You double click on multi-run and it brings in your INI file and you're good to go. You can also, I can change this FFmpeg right here. This is fully editable to Notepad. And go ahead and hit run. Can't find the text file, make it, yes, boom. So where you would normally use a GUI to where you're walking around all the menus and everything, the start menu, go find it, all of that's eliminated. So your click counts during any day session will be reduced by maybe 200, 300, 400 clicks because you set up your pipeline basically as your steps here, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want it to be. So I can very easily change right here my FFmpeg. I'll get rid of my parameter since we don't have FFmpeg. Change this to Notepad. And again, this is just the alpha version. Control S to save. Come over here, clear everything, load my any file, and there we go. There's Notepad. I can change my parameters here to test1.txt. Test2. Again, you can do these with multiple blend files. Whoops. That's Notepad being stupid. Hang on a second. That's Windows. I brought this over from Linux, so it's got the line feed all screwed up. Yeah, the line feeds got all goofy. Yeah, they still, oh yeah. Don't get me started on Windows, DOZE. I will tell you, for those people, who builds Blender here? We just scored the man who builds Microsoft Windows. He's now in developer chat helping with the Windows build system. He's literally the man who builds Microsoft Windows. He's one of the builders. He's one of their compiler specialists. And now he's to the compiling section. So that's really kind of cool. So he's in helping optimize and increase, if you use Blender on Windows, he's helping increase the speed of Blender. So
that's why we're getting new Visual Studio, modern Visual Studio builds in Windows. So
yeah, he's the one that fixed them, yeah. Yeah, he's one of the ones that's helping fix that whole thing. Him, Juicy Fruit, and a couple other people. So we're looking good for Blender's optimization on Windows. It's going to really increase with his help.
You know, it'd be nice if someone like that set up a built-on version where outside users could just download their Blender source code to and get multi-platform builds automatically.
It would be. I've been talking. I talked to Conrad about that, John Conrad about that, because he wanted to do that. So it's one of the things on our long list of stuff to do. It is a good idea. So just about, you can see here, I have the 2 cubes. Do you know where your Blender is in your path?
I do.
We can either copy it or I can just type it right in.
I could rattle it off the top of my head, okay. But if you want, I could copy the path for you.
Okay, yeah, just copy a path, just plug it right in there in the top one.
Sure. Does it matter if there's spaces in it?
No, I actually coded it to where it doesn't matter if there's spaces.
All right, that's good. Go with
so how I built it, and you can go ahead and just leave it in there. There you go.
Copy.
So go ahead and leave that right there. Oh, I wanted that window. That's okay. How I built this and how I use it right now, it saves me quite a bit of time. Let me see, Blender, is to drop in, whoops, that's not the one I wanted. Right here, Blender 264 Windows. Where you drop it in is right here is where you drop in your INI file. And I've got a routine to where you literally hit find Blender and it will find every single Blender executable and build a BMR.ini for you. So all your different Blender builds come right up into the GUI. So this GUI that I have, all you're gonna do is there's gonna be a little menu up here and say find Blender. And it will literally populate this with every version of Blender that you have automatically. So you launch this and you just pick which version. The version after that is gonna have aliases to where you name it and you don't see this unless you want to, the underneath part. That's where I'm going with it. But if you have a command line, you just paste it, run, up, something, didn't like something. Just just directory, we need the, correct. So we need a /Blender, just hit run, and boom. Notice it brings up a command window for you also for Blender. It's part of the feature, so you can always see the command output. If I had the data file, which we're running a little bit late, I'll show this again, this is just the alpha version. I could pass this data file, the blend file, remember I said you could populate that with all the different Blender versions we have? We can keep passing the data file too. The software automatically gives the data file to the next version of Blender you click on. It should stay. Yeah, it's right there.
That helps you throw Linux or Apple or something?
Yes, all of them. It'll always bring up, part of the feature I have plugged into it is it always brings up a command window for you, so it's there. So you can, correct. Correct. The other thing this does too is it actually runs templates. Since Ton is not releasing the template code, what you can do is you can populate that parameter list with all your templates, click on your template, and it runs Blender with the file you want opened. Again, it saves clicks. It's going to save you probably about 300-400 clicks a day. Yes, it does. Not only that, but it sends messages between the windows. So you can actually run two versions of Blender and they can talk to each other. That's the framework that I'm building on. It doesn't do it, this version doesn't do it right now, but that's what my previous software did. And it's very easy to actually implement. Cool part about it is part of a pipeline launcher. The problem is when I did media production, I had to load Notepad, which I actually rewrote Notepad. I had to write a audio editor, pardon me, I had to launch an audio editor. I had to launch my mixer, like 5 or 6 programs. And I started watching the clock. It took me 7 minutes to start working to 10 minutes every day. So that's why I originally wrote this program a few years back. So what you do now is you just hit these run selected and you hit these little check boxes. Okay, I got to clear this out here since we don't have that file. And this is going to have a 0-second wait, and this is going to wait 3 seconds. I'm going to put this on 10. So you can guess at how long the program will take to launch, or as the new code is being put in, I can tell when a program's done launching or when a program ends, and it'll automatically start the next step of your pipeline when you exit out of the program. So all the shell stuff that you normally do in Linux and all that, it's all going to be in a GUI. Hang on just 1 second. So this is going to wait 0 seconds to run. Trust me, you need to run stuff on a time index when you use this type of system. Like I said, I've been using it for years. Run selected. Okay, it's running Blender, and Notepad should pop up pretty quick here. Come on. There it goes, right there. It's popped up underneath the bottom. It ran Notepad for me on a time delay. Or I can come over here and I can not click that. Run Notepad on a 10-second time delay. Trust me, in production, you may want time delays. When you're working with software, you know that software gives you your output in 5 seconds, like Mocha. You know Mocha will process something in so many seconds, and that data file will be there. So you set this up as part of your pipeline, and it'll launch the program to go out on that time reference and grab that data and pull it in. So go ahead and hit run selected, and it'll wait 10 seconds, and you'll see Notepad should pop up. Yes. Yeah, the Lazarus platform gives you all of that functionality. And it's stuff like I said, there we go, 10 seconds later. Again, it doesn't look like a lot. It's like, okay, cool, it saves me 500 clicks. But when it saves you 20 to 40 minutes a day, most of you know I do live events. Sometimes I got 3 minutes to do something, you guys get 3 hours to do. So every click counts. So that's part of what this is for. The main reason is to run FFmpeg externally or any other program externally. Like I said, you can send the framework's in place to where you can send information to the other program, like macro keys, to where it looks like you're typing. So this little tiny window is a very, very powerful program. Even now in its alpha state, I use it every day in production, and it's no. So one of the reasons you have the time offset, it launches so quick if you don't use the time offset and you launch 10 programs, it'll crash your computer. Any computer's that way. Because computers aren't used to getting that many launches. And again, I've been using it in production, so I know all the little bells and whistles that should go into it. It's going to be a very powerful little tool. The key is if you have a pipeline, you're using a suite of software, or you're passing software back and forth, or You're using tools like FFmpeg, or you're using multiple versions of Blender. This is going to be a lifesaver because it manages it all for you. And then you have the multiple BMR INI files. So you can, once you set your configuration, you just hit load and bam, you're good to go.
Did you come up with that format, or is that a standard format?
It's just a regular INI reader, so it uses a standard INI formatting, but we can put anything in there we want. We could put Rex in there for a parameter, and it'll look up the Rex parameter and use it in the software. So, but the key is you can pass blend files from Blender to Blender to Blender version. I'm also talking with the verse people to where the program, you can actually control Blender from within the program and tell Blender to do something within the GUI. So you're not even going into Blender, and the Blender GUI is over there doing it for you. So there's a lot of functionality, and there's other people that I'm working with on this. So it's basically think if you're working too hard for your computer, this program is going to make your computer work for you. That's just it. Click counts, passing data, interoperability between programs, all of that crap that bugs the snot out of you. It goes away when you do this. Use this program.
Like you could be a great platform. I've been trying to wrap my head around how do you stream numbers in Blender and get a visual representation of those numbers. And it seems like potentially this could be a very good instrument to that end.
It could be. This is one of the ways that you're going to be able to use an external program, and other programs can talk to this program, and it'll talk to Blender to stream data into Blender. But Verse is really good for that. Verse will work well for that. And I'm talking with the Verse developers on doing that. We're running late, so I don't want to take up too much time. You know, I'll keep you guys posted on this. At least you got to look, so when you see my emails or you see information about it, you kind of got an idea. You know, there'll be videos up. But I use this myself, and like I said, when I did media production, one of the things that I did is I wrote a program because I always had my headphones on when I was composing stuff on my synthesizer, and all my clients were getting upset because they always had to leave a message. Now I make everybody leave a message so nobody complains. You can't call me straight anymore. So I solved it that way. But I wrote a program to look at my phone modem, and when my phone modem saw the phone ring, it blinked my icons on my desktop. And if I didn't answer, a big screen would come up and says, "Answer the phone, idiot." You know, and it starts blinking red. So when I'm sitting here composing something on my synthesizer, this software launched a piece of program. I got up in the day. Of course, my computer is right next to my bed, so I worked in my underwear. You know how that goes, all you freelancers. Got up in my bed, booted my computer, one program came up, I hit one button, went to the bathroom, came back, started working. Put my headphones on, powered up my synthesizer. I was composing back and forth, blah, blah, blah. You called me, the thing started blinking. That's where the concept of this was born, was, hey, wait a second, I'm working too hard, the computer's not working for me. So as you guys see this and you guys want to contribute, it's going to be an open source project. Feel free to contribute. It'll save you clicks. But that's your first sneak peek. Appreciate you guys' time.
Sure. People are feel free to leave whenever. We usually hang out after the meetings and talk like this anyhow. So we may go for beers after this.
Well, on here I can say goodbye. I'll stop recording since we're at a decent stopping point. But yeah, thanks guys. This has been great.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers, everybody.
Yep. Have a good one.
Cheers.